or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
Shocking news.
Oh, boy. I think I see that one coming down the trail.
What are you guessing?
The Bolt.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. What cost $1 billion to get rid of? Apparently a lot of batteries for Chevy Bolts. They originally had a recall that they said was going to cost General Motors about $700 million to do some minor things on the cars, but now it's turned into a complete recall of all the Bolts to replace their batteries. It's going to be, the numbers are in the billions of dollars they're saying for this, for I think 120 or 140,000 vehicles that they've sold. And they're hoping that they will get reimbursed by the battery maker, Panasonic, who's involved in this also. And Panasonic is also the one that's involved in the creation of their, what do they call it, the Ultium, or the batteries package that General Motors is using as they look forward to their new brands. So this is going to be, as many call it, one of many bumps in the road in the road to electrification. But the reason they're recalling them is that these cars, when they hit a high state of charge, they've had 10 incidents of them bursting into flames, most recently in Arizona somewhere, I believe. And that's enough to get people excited. If this car is charging, where do you charge it? Russ, where do you charge your car?
In your garage.
Yes. So that doesn't seem like a good place for it to burst into flames.
No, I don't think
there's any good place, but that would be my least favorite place for my car to burst into flames would be in my garage. Well, actually, the least would be if I was in it.
Right.
But then the second would be if it's in my house. And so that's going to be an interesting story to watch. And if that's a bump in the road, that's a big one.
Yeah.
But they'll keep pushing through because that seems to be where everybody's pointing to. So we've got a fairly significant event there. Then along the lines of, I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly here. I'm just trying to be aware. I'm sure that when internal combustion engines were being pushed and people were used to using a horse-drawn carriage, there was all kinds of concerns about, boy, what's this going to happen? What if it's, I'm sure there was tons of things.
Sure.
So they had to work through that. Another friend of me had sent a note here just recently where the United States now has formally, I guess I thought it was formally before, but this is a more formal investigation into Tesla on its Autopilot system.
Right.
And that was a recent story because they've had too many incidents of these cars, and they've been well publicized because there's enough people that have stake in this game that it gets well publicized when it succeeds, and it gets well publicized when there's a problem. Because there's people that have positions on the stock that are short, and there's people, so they constantly push the bad news because they'd love to see it fail, but there's so much momentum, and the product is proven to be so good, it's overridden all that resistance because of that. And so, but this story goes on to say 31 crashes involving partially automated driver assist systems since June of 2016. Some of the things that they're running into problems is the vehicles running into parked emergency vehicles.
That are partly on the road, partly off the road with lights on.
Where they're doing their job, and the vehicles are hitting those vehicles, which I'm sure they'll eventually figure all that out. But right now, it seems to be a challenge for those cars if somebody's got it in the semi-autonomous mode, which is supposed to be semi-autonomous, and many people are tricking it to go into full autonomous and documenting it, which I don't think is probably the smartest thing to do.
I learned something neat about those cars the other day from somebody that I know that owns one of those. So she let her husband borrow the car, and he was driving it on a road trip about 400 miles, and he refused to keep his hands on the steering wheel.
Okay.
And the car warned him.
Oh, yeah.
and then it locked him out where he wasn't able to use it down the road. I don't know how many miles it was, but it locked him out because he says,
I wonder if the software's been updated.
He would just, touch the wheel, let go, and it would say, no, you got to keep your hands on the wheel. So he pulled the car over, turned it off, and restarted it, thinking that he could get around that. And it said, no, recognized driver is the same driver. They switched positions, and it worked fine. So they switched back, and it said, no, it had a lockout for a certain amount of time. And I was also looking at the report, too. As they're digging into this, they're starting to release more facts about these things. The number, they actually track the number of miles driven and what happens during those miles by both normal driving of people and in their autonomous mode, in their, quote, autopilot mode. And they're looking at accident numbers. There's actually been less accidents per mile while in autopilot than off. But I guess I was surprised that they track all those kind of things, but also not surprised. I guess if that anything those companies throw out at you now,
right,
even on cars that are not autonomous, like a lot of the Cadillac stuff, there's a lot of stuff being tracked that it's kind of scary how much they're looking into what we're doing.
Just to put our hands on the wheel here and finish this story before we go to the calls, the investigation will access the technologies and methods used to monitor, assist, and enforce the driver engagement with the dynamic driving task during autopilot operation, NHTSA said in its investigation documents. In addition, the probe will cover object and event detection by the system as well as where it is allowed to operate. NHTSA says it will examine contributing circumstances of the crashes as well as similar crashes. An investigation could lead to recall or other enforcement action by NHTSA. NHTSA reminds the public that no commercially available, this is a very important paragraph here, NHTSA reminds the public that no commercially available motor vehicles today are capable of driving themselves. The agency said in a statement, every available vehicle requires a human driver to be in control at all times, and all state laws hold human drivers responsible for operations of the vehicle.
There you go.
That's a pretty strong statement from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
866-594-4150. Quick correction, LG makes the batteries.
Oh, hey, that's a big correction.
Yeah.
Life's good.
Yeah, no, that's a huge correction. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
And thank you to Charles on the chat.
Yeah, that's.
I thought it was.
Give him
and
some
I was
kudos because
up.
I read the story a couple times and I must have had something else in my mind.
I hope it doesn't end up like Volkswagen. You remember the emissions thing? They reprogrammed some cars and they're like, oh, great, they're working, but a little less mileage. Hey, we got some brand new batteries for you, but your range has been cut down 50 miles. It would look really good on them if the range went up.
Right.
Which it should, because it's all redesigned.
Well,
right?
they've recently did some changes in those cars because I started investigating them just a little bit because we've got one here we're going to be dismantling, and it's our first electric vehicle to dismantle here at our full service auto recycling facility, and the charge rate of how fast it can accept the charge, what's the measurement, the kilowatt hours or whatever that it can accept the charge, in that newer model of car was increased substantially, so it can accept charge much faster.
Okay,
and they also increased range on the cars. And so there's already been some tweaking done. So Russ, I'm right with you. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
let's talk to Natalie in Idaho. Natalie, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hi there. Hey, I have a 2003 GMC 2500 HD. And I bought it used about a year ago. It has 132,000 miles on it. And my first experience with the problem that I had, I was actually pulling my trailer, my bumper pull trailer. But as I was pulling, all of my, like the doors unlocked and then locked, and I had a beep go off and kind of a jerk, and then I had the ABS light go on and an error an error message that said system brake system, or check system brake. But it continued to pull. So I called the person that I bought it from, a dealership, and he did some research and called the original owner, and the original owner said that had been happening since the day he bought the truck. So I took it to my local mechanic. They did some research. They said it's a known problem. And I've Googled it, and it's a known problem. So I'm wondering if it's a known problem, what is the fix for that?
Well, let's just say this out loud. The truck is a very low mileage in the grand scheme of things, 2003 with 130,000 miles. It's also a truck that is 18 years old. And in 18 years, somebody's figured out this problem. This is not an unsolvable problem. This is not the impossible problem. There are some things that can drive you crazy on these trucks, and Russ and I have had personal experience with some issues with tow lights, and in the end of the day, didn't think I could figure my one out on my truck, and then I figured it out. The problem was with my trailer in my particular case.
That's
but this
not
is
her problem.
But this is a different situation.
Right.
I'm just saying there are things like this that you'd swear you can't figure out. You replace parts, you check wiring, can't figure out, and all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah. Each
Uh-huh.
vehicle is different.
Can I add something really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that was my first experience. So I thought it was just related to towing, but it's not. It seems to happen when I'm on an incline of some sort, and it's happened towing and not towing. And it disables my cruise control, which really makes me sad.
Well, each vehicle is different. So when they say there's a known problem for something, it's only a known problem if it actually fixes your issue. If the known problem is, well, you replace this module and it fixes it, my guess is that they already would have fixed it. If the previous owner had this problem and it's been occurring the whole time, for me, I'd be pretty upset if I had bought it from a dealership and the dealership went so far as to call that last person and they found out that I think somebody along the line there is liable for something because they're actually admitting that the person who had it since new, it
had to have some service records of some sort, doesn't it, Russ?
That, or either they told the dealership or they didn't, which means they covered something up when they sold it. I don't know. It just seems weird. But I can tell you, we've got 500,000 listeners on this show every week on radio, plus a large podcast following as well, too. And we've never had this call or email out of the hundreds of emails we receive for this specific thing. So I wouldn't say it's a known common problem. It's a problem and it can be fixed, but it's going to take some diagnostic. It sounds exactly like what happens if you were to shut the ignition switch off and turn it back on for a split second, just really quick. You'll get a little jerk. The truck will keep pulling, but everything will go into a reset mode. It'll say service brake system because it's lost its data. It gets wacky. It could be as simple as a bad electrical portion of the ignition switch causing this whole issue. It could also be a wire, a ground issue, something like that. If it's doing it just on an incline, it could mean it's doing it because it's under load on that incline. It could also be because it's tipped at that angle, but more than likely just because it's under load. If we were diagnosing this, it was my own truck, and I've had friends that have come in with these trucks when they're pulling under load and they have fuel issues, and we put gauges on and things to try to find it. But electrically, I would connect a voltmeter to the ignition switch, not just a scanner, but a real voltmeter, and I would check one section at a time. I would put my meter on it. I would drive the truck, and when it occurs, I'd look at my meter and see if I lost voltage. If I did, then I know where to keep going back in the section until I find it. I start at the side of the switch that goes out, and when I lose voltage, then I go back to the side of the switch that comes in, and if I have good in voltage but no out voltage, I know I need to put a switch in it. It is 20 years old, or almost 20 years old, so putting a switch in it isn't super expensive, and it's not going to hurt. And we have seen, I think we've put 6 or 7 of those switches in the last 10 years, so it is something that can fail in those vehicles. You could duplicate the same thing by, in a shop, if a mechanic's driving it, you turn the switch off and on real quick and see if you duplicate that exact problem. It's not real safe driving down the road to do that, but we do it mechanically when we're in a shop. It's going to take if a tech says, oh, yeah, it's a known problem, well, then that tech should know how to fix it. If you come into my shop and I say, Natalie, it's a known problem, we see this all the time, I may not detail exactly what we're doing to fix it, but I can tell you the cost, what it's going to take, and we'll get that fixed for you, and then you should be assured it's fixed. But when a mechanic just says, oh, it's a known problem, Oh, well, how do you know that? Are you just, is it hearsay, or do you?
So every
have you
one of them
seen
is
it?
just not fixed?
Yes, exactly.
That's not the case.
They put out service bulletins when there is a known problem, and
because eventually they find a known repair.
Right.
right, they don't they just refuse to, especially a truck like that that's so popular. The Fords, the Rams, they just don't.
That's their
let 'em
bread
go.
and butter. I mean, those trucks are their bread and butter, whether it be a half ton or a 3/4 ton or a 1 ton for Ford, GM, Chrysler, Nissan, Toyota. That's a big profit item, and they got to make sure they get that stuff figured out. So we're not trying to say, yes, it can be fixed, talk to them again. But we don't like hearing that, because known problem should result to known result, especially in a vehicle that's 18 years old.
Yeah,
Right.
And I don't even know if a diesel mechanic is necessary in this realm of what's going on, because it doesn't seem to be affecting the engine as much as your electronics. The Cruise is going to shut off whenever you see an electronic shutdown. It's supposed to do that when it sees certain codes. But even a regular shop may be able to diagnose that. It's going to have to be somebody that knows electronics and knows how to repair electronics. Not just everybody in every shop can do that. You know, in our shop, we got a couple guys that have the ability to do that, and we've got some that don't have the ability to do that. So I'm not going to give the truck to somebody that doesn't know, how to efficiently fix that type of thing. But it still has to be occurring while the person working on it has it. So if it only does this once every 100 miles, most shops are going to refuse to even look at it, because they can't reasonably fix it.
They can't make you happy, and they can't fix it.
If it does it every 100 miles, that's going to realistically be probably 2 hours for every 100 miles. I could expect to spend 2 weeks of driving it 8 hours a day to isolate that problem and fix it if it's not completely out, which makes it really hard.
One last tip, and we better roll into our next spot here. That Carfax that people can do would be probably interesting, just to see if there's service history.
Carfax mechanical, not collision.
Yep. But Russ, actually, I want to do the collision one on this, because the reason I would is if this vehicle, when it was young, had an accident or a collision, and it says left front damage or something like that, have somebody inspect just a little closer the wiring in the area if it had a collision at one time, just in case they had, and it could have been a wonderful collision, but maybe they didn't get the paint cleaned up right underneath the ground real good, or it's corroded a little bit. Something didn't get tightened up when it got put back together. That happens. So if there was ever a collision, have somebody look closely in that area. Doesn't mean the truck is bad. Just really inspect that area close.
A wonderful collision repair.
Yeah.
Not a wonderful collision. I don't know if you're going to...
Keep correcting me. That's all good.
Natalie, I hope that helps you out a little bit.
It does. It moves us in the right direction, and maybe you'll hear back from us with a resolution or more questions.
We want that. That would be great. Maybe we could use that to help somebody else down the road. Chris, I see we're coming up on a break, but speaking of collisions in the front, Shannon, you guys were asking me why I had my hood up the other day, and I was looking at batteries and this and that and why they were going dead. It was the driver's side battery that had failed that was killing the other battery. It finally started leaking out the top post, because that's a vehicle that still has the lead acid.
Was that from your accident?
I'll bet if they took that apart and investigated it, it's got a broken plate in it, because it was right there on that battery box, and the fender contacted the battery on that corner.
Well, yeah.
I'll bet that's what
if that fender
happened.
twists, it's going to move that battery box pretty quickly.
It tagged that battery, and I'll bet that's what caused that battery to fail.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Gary. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Don't forget, if you like our Facebook page and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Jeffrey Lear, who listens to us in Holland, Michigan on WHDC. Congratulations from all of us here at Under the Hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, UTI.edu. Thinking about a career in automotive technology, marine mechanics, welding, CNC machining, collision repair. Those guys can fix you up. They're going to get you trained, because there's so many jobs out there that need good people like you. So you owe it to yourself to go over to uti.edu and check them out and see if it might be something that you're interested in, because if it is, we feel they're the only place that's going to get you trained to be the best. uti.edu.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gary over in Minnesota. Gary, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I've called in about a backup camera on a 2014 Ford Explorer. Seems to only work intermittently. Maybe sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, maybe for 5 seconds or so. And then sometimes when you're going forward, it'll stay on for 5 or 10 seconds.
Gotcha. So that is part of the Ford sync system. Common problem to have issues with backup cameras. A lot of times the camera just fails. You can buy them used as a certified recycled auto part. You can buy them brand new from Ford. You can buy them aftermarket. And technically,
I bought aftermarket and put it in, brand new one, online, and it does nothing. I took it back out and put the old one back in, and it works like it did before. But then I was reading that once you put a new camera in, you have to take it back to the dealer to have it reprogrammed. And I have a hard time finding a dealer that if you buy an aftermarket, that's going to reprogram it for you.
Well, technically, whatever cam you put in there shouldn't be a problem. Aftermarket, new, used.
Yeah, that camera doesn't have a VIN number.
You're not programming the camera. You're programming the sync system. And the updates are updating the car's receiver, the camera receiver, basically your TV, not the camera itself. If you're plugging in an aftermarket camera and it doesn't light up and your old one does, more than likely something is wrong with that camera. I've recently worked on one of these within the last 2 weeks. Same issue. I had several cameras. I had several used cameras. I had a new camera, had them all. Well, one of them didn't work. It happened to be the new Ford camera. Do you think it needed programming? No, it wasn't that. It was the camera itself that was bad. We ended up putting an aftermarket camera in it, fixed everything. No programming involved. I looked, though, at the sync system to see if there were any updates needed, because they have had some issues on those where when they were made, they found down the road there was some issues in the sync system to help with the image. Sometimes they'd be upside down, flipped, and
that would be confusing.
Yeah, because
especially if you're backing up.
The computer looks at the image and determines if it's right side up or upside down. So if you had the car if the car was rolled over in an accident and you were to start it up and put it in reverse, it should automatically flip the image to keep it stable. It's a weird system the way it works, but hopefully you're not going to be upside down and have to try that.
Might distract you while help comes.
Yeah.
Keep your mind off things.
So the programming, the update may need to be done no matter what, but I think the problem that is a lot to do with sometimes you put it in gear and there's nothing. Other times it works. Sometimes the image is fuzzy or
that could be
skewed.
an update to the sync system.
That could be an update, but the no image at all, I really think is your camera itself. So if you were, let's say you put another aftermarket one in there and now you have an image, but it's still doing those same things the old one was, then you can go into Ford and you don't even have to tell them you put a new aftermarket camera, and you can just say, hey, can we get a software update on this because I'm having those weird things? And they'll say, sure. And they'll update it, but there's nothing connected. There's no data wire going in there to make that camera do, there's no update in there for that. So if you've got no image updating, it's not going to give you an image on that one.
Does that help you out there at all?
What would an update cost? What would an update cost?
Depends on where you go. I've seen dealerships charge anywhere from $100 to $200 to do the flash updates. Just depends on which one you go to and what their labor rate is.
Gary, good luck. Thanks for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Darlene. You're on the Under the Hood. Darlene, what can we do for you?
It used to be the cars, you could watch the all underneath the hood, the motor and everything. In the earlier cars in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I've seen, back then, I've seen a lot of cars being washed with pressurized water. And you can't do that now with the computerized under the hood, motors and the whole setup of computerized everything. How do you maintain cleanliness of the underneath side of the hood and the underneath side of your car?
Good question.
Well, the car washes that have the underbody washes, as long as you don't go to ones that are too heavy a spray. We have one that's just crazy. It'll clean anything off the bottom of your car, but it also can affect fans and the way it runs and make it stall. Chris, you've had that happen. Right? So I use that one when I need to clean off heavy oil leakage or something on a vehicle after it's been worked on. But you can wash under the hood of modern cars. You just got to be careful how you do it. You can't use high pressure 3,000 PSI to 5,000 PSI pressure washers to do this. Even on the old cars from the 60s.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done it then, really.
Well, you didn't want to be spraying electrical wires, but you could spray manifolds if they weren't too hot. You could spray the blocks and wash the grease off.
You could guide where your spray was at.
You could, because there was a lot of open real estate there. You can't do that with new cars because almost every inch of that engine is covered with a wiring harness, some type of a cover, some piece of electronics, and you don't want to get water into that. But you can use products to clean that. Our partner at Berryman makes a very nice engine degreaser. You spray on everything, you let it sit, and then you rinse it off with a garden hose. You don't use pressurized directed water. You just rinse it. And then you run the engine until it's thoroughly warm and everything dry under there. And it's not a problem. The connectors and the components under the hoods are weather resistant. They're not waterproof, which means they're not meant to be submerged in water for a period of time, but they can get damp because you are going to get snow that blows under your hood and melts wherever the car may go.
Big splashes that water could get up underneath there, so they have to be water resistant to a certain respect.
Right. So you should be able to do that. I rinse mine off when we're done doing repair jobs on cars. Every one of them that we need to do under the hood, clean off for some reason, we will rinse off and use Berryman to spray down if we need a degreaser to eat that heavy grease off. And we don't have any problems. So just avoid, you don't want to go to that self-service car wash and use that pressurized wand because it's typically over 3,000 pounds per square inch. And if we can take our electronic probe tool and use 2 pounds of force to stick it between a connector and a seal on an electronic part, we can definitely get water in there with 3,000 PSI.
And you can cut your skin too. So just don't be thinking you're going to say, how hard is this? Don't do that. Don't do that.
So the answer is be careful, but it can be done.
Yes.
Yes.
866-594-4150. Darlene, thanks very much for the call. Let's talk to Jed. Jed, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, I got a 01 F-150, and it has no low range whatsoever. You know, you click it into 4 low, it doesn't do any. It'll just stay in 4 high, and even clicking it in 4 high, it just like falls on its face. It'll barely slip a tire, and even in mud. But it seems to run just perfectly normal in 2-wheel drive.
Okay. Have you ever been able to use low on it since you got the truck?
No, I bought it used, and it was always out.
All right, so here's what you do. Get in the truck, start it up, and put it in neutral. And then step on the brake while it's in neutral and try to shift it into 4 low. Because that system on that 01 F-150 has a lockout in it that will not allow you to put it in low unless the truck is stopped and it's in neutral, running, and your foot's on the brake. And then it'll allow it to shift into low. But remember, that's also how you get it back into high gear, either high 4 or 2-wheel drive. And a lot of people have had them get into low accidentally, and then they can't get them into drive. So, for example, if your switch is in the low position and you're stopped, you start the car up, you start the truck up, and you put your foot on the brake and you go reverse, neutral, drive, it's going to go click, click, and switch to low. And then people say, it's stuck. I can't get it out of low. Maybe they were washing the car and wiping off the dash, and when they did, they bumped it into low. So it'll get it into lock. But if you put that in low position and then put it in neutral with your foot on the brake and the engine's running, you're not moving anywhere, it should go into low. But you may have some other issues if it's not locking in good.
Yeah, if you say it on high range 4-wheel drive, you're not getting any power either, That makes me nervous.
It just,
You said just two-wheel drive is where it seems to work normal.
yeah, two-wheel drive seems to work just fine. And like the other day, I was on a real steep grade, and there was kind of loose dirt, and I kind of spun out, and I just clicked it into four-wheel drive, and it was like it was trying to start out in high gear or something. It just wouldn't even slip a tire. I couldn't even crawl up the hill.
And when you're talking about pushing the electronic button for the four-wheel drive shifter, correct?
Yeah, it's got a little turn switch, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if it's an electronic four-wheel drive problem, that is different. That it would be high range not allowing it to go normal. Because usually it's low range that goes out, or else they go out completely, and the transfer case itself is just letting it freewheel in between the transmission and the drive shafts. Does that have an auto setting on it, on your four-wheel drive turn switch?
No.
You know what it could? I'm trying to think of what could cause the thing to not have a lot of power in four-wheel drive, but in two-wheel drive it's fine. What if he's got two different gear ratio axles in there, or tires that are really worn on one end or a different size, so it's binding up in four-wheel drive and you're losing power?
Could be. I mean, I'm just trying to think of anything.
Those are things to inspect.
Because what you're explaining is obviously not normal, or you wouldn't have called us.
Right.
But the descriptions you're giving us of problems are not normal. Because if it is the auto system in there, then you do have some viscous clutches in there, or electronic clutches, depending on the model, that could potentially slip, just like a transmission, before they go out. But if you're having no low range, power limited in high range, it sure sounds like a transfer case problem, but that's not normal.
The low range is probably just the putting in neutral.
Yeah.
Foot on the brake.
Try that once. Try working yourself in and out of low range once, and then see if anything changes.
And look at your tire size. Make sure they match. They've got the same amount of tread, and they're the same size.
Jed, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Paul. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Paul, what can we do for you?
Good morning, guys. Anyway, big fan of the show.
Thank you.
What I've got is I've got a 2015 Ram Promaster, and this van is my work van, and I have roughly put about 110,000 miles on it in the last 3 years, so I do drive it quite a bit. And anyway, right around 90,000 miles, it seemed to have a misfire. And it would only do it after the vehicle gets warmed up at normal running temperature, and only when it's idling. There are times where it just violently shakes the whole engine. The van has been in the shop several times. We have replaced all the plugs, the coils, and did the 100,000 mile tune-up, and other than that, just general maintenance. And this thing is still misfiring. I just want to know if you guys could give me some guidance on that.
Is that the 3.6 liter motor?
2.6, I do believe.
It's a gas motor, 3.6 V6 is what I think is in there, correct?
And no, sir, I do believe it's just a 4-cylinder.
Is this a gas motor or a diesel motor?
Yes.
Because we've got one of these that we run as a diesel, but I mean the gas motor ones, I thought most of those were a 3.6 liter
I've
V6.
never seen a 4-cylinder in a Promaster, not a gas 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
Just the V6.
Full-size Promaster. You're talking the Chrysler version of the Promaster.
No, this one here is the Mini Promaster.
Okay.
There we go. That would make more sense.
Yep, that's a whole.
Because that's got a 2.4 global engine in it, probably, correct?
And there we go, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a whole different vehicle.
Because when you were talking a 3.6 on a Promaster, I was just going to tell them to do a leak down test, because I've got personal experience with one of those motors. But
lots of head
we'll
issues.
just back out of that, and now we'll start over again, the Scooby-Doo ending. And here we are with the Mini Promaster, the city version. and he's got this idling problem going on, stumbling.
We have seen a lot of camshaft issues with those 4-cylinder engines and cylinder head issues, just like the V6, where they've had problems with valve seats and issues with the camshafts and causing at idle misfires as they leak past those valves. So that's one. So they've already checked and even replaced some of the things that we would have just been inspecting, like your spark plugs, your coils and coil boots, things like that. If they've already done that and it still has that misfire at idle, then we're going to go that next step further and a little bigger, which is pull the plugs out and do a leak down test on those cylinders. And I'm probably going to do it under the same conditions. So when it's hot, I'm going to have the plugs out. I'm going to check those and see if we have leak down.
Now, just for people listening to our hoodies, we're doing a leak down test, not a compression test.
We're looking to see if we have combustion pressure leaking past those valves when they're closed, not a compression test while we're cranking. And if we do have any leakage past closed valves, it means we've got a problem with the valve sealing, whether it's a seat or a valve or a head. Something's causing that issue.
So what we're saying is don't rule that out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've seen people spend a lot of money trying to replace everything on the outside. As a matter of fact, we had a recent call as an older vehicle where the gentleman had spent quite a bit of money. I think he even switched. He switched computers, did all kinds of stuff, and then come to find out he had cylinders that had problems.
A lot of it's diagnosis, and it takes a good shop to. And I shouldn't say that. Let me word that better. It takes the right person at a good shop to do it, because there's some great shops out there. Even our shop, I would consider our shop very good. But depending on who I give you in my shop, it makes our shop look good or bad.
Certain skill sets
if
match
I
up
gave
to certain repairs
a
better.
super heavy diagnostic job to the guy that does the heavy line stuff and said, "Here, fix this," I'd go, "Oh, well, okay, I don't know." And the same way goes the other way. So you could go to the best manufacturer-trained dealership in the world. If they give it to the oil change guy, they're not going to get it. So you have that conversation with whoever your service advisor is. Find out, hey, have you had experience with this? Can you work on it? Sounds like they're already going down that path.
It does.
Their next step at this place where you took it to is probably going to be, okay, we've done the coils. We've eliminated some things. Let's look a little deeper.
Yep, and then they need to be checking, fuel pressure and volume at idle. They need to be checking, exhaust flow at idle, warm, to make sure there's not a catalytic converter that's got material coming loose inside of it that, at certain conditions is creating exhaust blockage. I mean, there's just different things that become a wider scope of thought than the typical what you see and do under the hood when you first have a misfire issue.
Paul, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to John in South Carolina. John, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, great. Enjoy your show.
Thanks.
Got a question. I've got a 1997 Jeep Grand Cherokee V8 four-wheel drive. It's got all new tires on it, new brakes, rotors and calipers, front wheel bearings, half shafts in the front. Had the rear end rebuilt with a new pinion bearing and wheel bearings, but yet I'm still getting like a mechanical grinding noise. I took it to a shop. They diagnosed it as a rear end situation. They rebuilt it. Like I say, it didn't take the noise away, but they did check the transfer case. No metal in the bottom. Everything seemed to be okay. Just can't figure out where the noise is coming from.
Wow, you've spent some money. Holy smokes. Have you spent $5,000?
Oh, no. I did a lot of the work myself except for the rear end rebuild.
Yeah, because if you hired somebody to do what you just described, you spent some money on a vehicle that is very nice probably, but that's just a lot of money to spend.
Well, it's only got 137,000 miles on it. So
why don't you give me a little better explanation of the noise and where you think it's coming from? Just give us a little more overview on what the problem you're hearing is.
Well, it's kind of like a mechanical grinding noise, and it seems to me coming from the front, but I've taken it to a couple shops, and they said because of the unitized body, the sound kind of, echoes through the whole car, so it's kind of hard to pinpoint where the noise is coming from. I mean, it's been doing this for quite a while. It hasn't broke down or anything. But yeah, it's very disconcerting about the noise. I'd like to find out what's the matter with it.
Couple more probing questions. The front axle half shafts you replaced. The front wheel bearings you replaced on that front axle. Everything else looked good on that when they put that together?
Yes, I did that myself, yeah.
Okay, that's right. All right. And so you feel pretty good about the front axle's condition?
Yes.
Because, I mean, it's not unusual for those to get problems in the front. We sell a number of those axles because the front ring gear and pinion, and such wear out on them. But with the miles you have, that shouldn't be the case. And have you replaced and inspected closely the front drive shaft?
No.
That would be an area of focus for me because of the number of those that we sell that go bad. It would definitely be an area of focus to check that out with that joint on the front of the drive shaft.
Okay,
Russ, what are some of the other things that you would point him towards? Based on what he's already done and still getting that. Does it change any if you go 4-wheel drive, 2-wheel drive, turn the wheel, faster, slower?
It's synchronized with the speed of the vehicle. I can put it in neutral and the noise continues. So it's a rotating type noise.
Yeah, it could be. We've seen some issues in the transfer cases and those. Also, the front drive shaft, like Shannon said, we put them on our hoists, and we have somebody get in the vehicle and run them and go between. We have to disable the traction control and ABS and things like that so we can actually run them on the hoist with the four wheels off the ground. And then we listen to things with a stethoscope or a sound listening device. We have several microphones that are set up, and we'll listen at different areas and switch back and forth. And it sometimes takes that little deeper inspection to find those things when you're looking for a noise issue like that. It's not easy at all to do at home, but it's something it'll have to ultimately be done on a hoist with where they can put their foot on the brake and the gas at the same time and simulate a load and try to get that problem to reoccur. But it could be found. It's possible it's going to be found in a bearing in the differential or in the transfer case or even in the something in the drive shaft.
I want him to go check that front drive shaft and then calls right back. John, thanks very much for the call.
We just have a ton of problems with them, so it's somewhere I'd look.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is coming up. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. You guys don't have to answer this question.
We don't?
No, I'm just going to ask you, listening to the intro, are you guys all current on your certification? 866-594-4150. I don't know why I thought
Why did you bring that up?
Like, are you asking me why now?
Yeah, why would...
Or why in general? Because in general, I shouldn't have.
No, but as it's playing, I'm thinking I have a postcard laying on my desk to renew. and I've let it expire. My last certification.
I got mine right on my phone. They
I
send
know
you questions every month.
Russ told me this. He told me this months ago. Hey, get back with it.
Yeah, they send you new questions every month. You just go tap, tap, tap. You type and answer them, and you got all that time to text on your phone.
He's made it aware to me.
So simple.
I'm aware of it. And now you bring it up.
Out of the blue.
You bring it up. Now I feel
it's a
guilted
sign from
Chris
over there.
Wow, that's interesting. That's how it works. Agriculture started all at the same time worldwide. Just kind of happened.
Bader Meinhof?
Similar, yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, way to go.
Maybe because people needed to eat, right? So
well,
worldwide.
But all over the world, thousands of years ago, they all started doing the same thing at the same time, unconnected.
Some were better than others.
For sure. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Kansas and talk to Bradley. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bradley, what can we do for you?
All right. Thank you very much for your show and all that.
You bet.
On my 1986 Ford F-150, the standard alternator on it was 60 amp, and that's what I got now. All right, 60 amp alternator. You know if it'd be okay to put a optional 70 amp on it?
In that age of vehicle, 100% you can.
Okay.
With the age of the vehicle, you can. Now, you get into some of the newer ones, you've got to match everything up because the computer's expecting a certain voltage and amperage. It's all got to make sense. Is that correct, Russ?
Right.
On these older vehicles, we did it all the time. And when back in the day, when we did car stereos and everything else, you're always looking to get a little more juice to keep your battery going when you'd start adding more amperage to the circuits.
So in this case, he's talking about adding an alternator that produces more electricity.
Okay. And they have, in that case of alternator that goes on that truck, you can buy an alternator that fits right on there in the same size case of alternator that has a higher output, just the different windings inside of it that they use to get a different result. So 100% yes.
There you go. Bradley, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Steve. Steve, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Morning. Hey, my granddaughter stopped by. She's got a 2000 and 2002 Dodge Caravan. She says a little light comes on that it's hot. And we checked the radiator fluid.
Oh, your phone cut out there a little bit, Steve. Try that again. Make sure you're not moving it, and we'll hope it's not yourself. Go ahead again with that question.
My granddaughter has a 2000 or 2002 Dodge Caravan. She says a little light comes on and says it's hot. And I've checked the radiator, transmission fluid, checked the oil. Everything's up. But she doesn't think she can hear the fans going. So how do we check to see if the fans are good?
You plug a scanner into it.
He says, "No, I don't have one of those."
Well, that's what you're going to have to test that. Otherwise, you let it run until it gets hot enough where the fans should come on, and if they don't come on, then they're not working. But when you bring it into a shop and you ask them to test it, they plug a scanner in. They activate the fans, low speed, medium, high speed, whatever there is for settings, and they see if they run. If they don't run, then they get out the wiring diagram and they start looking. They check fuses to the fans, make sure they have power. They check the relays to make sure the relays work.
In this case, we're talking about the fans at the front of the engine, right?
Right,
okay.
Correct. And they'll pull relays out and jumper across, see if they can get the fans to run, see if it's the computer that doesn't have control of the fans or if the relays won't operate the fans when they're activated. You know, if they jumper them and they don't run, but it's very common on those vehicles for the fans to fail. We sell lots of fan assemblies for those, and we put them in and then they work again. But they can quit. You can lose one or both, whatever you've got for a number of fans on a vehicle.
Do they always run in tandem, two at a time? Okay.
No, different ones run differently. It depends on the vehicle and the models and the setups. Some, even the same model, could have different fan setups on it depending on what it was equipped with. But they'll run just one, they'll run two, they'll run low speed, high speed. Some vehicles always run the pair together at variable speeds all the way up. Some don't have a variable speed. They have not an infinitely variable with a pulse width modulator. They have on, off, and low, medium, high, and use resistors to slow them down. Depending on whether the AC, if the AC's on a warm day, you turn the AC on, within a few seconds, the fans should both be running. If that's not happening, do not run that air conditioning system. I have so many people that tell me, yeah, my car
yesterday?
Yeah, my car overheats a little bit when it's sitting idling and the air doesn't work when I'm at a stoplight. But then once I get going again, it works fine. So I've been using it that way for a while. Well, surprise, you're probably going to be spending $1,500 to $2,000 to replace your entire air conditioning system if you've been driving it that way because you think it's okay to sit at a stoplight when it's not working. But down the road, you're fine.
Don't look at me.
It's overheating the air conditioning system. No, you asked.
I know.
Because you said, I've been listening to this show before.
If you wouldn't have mentioned the fact that you haven't heard the fans run, we also would want to check to make sure you're getting a true signal, that you don't have a sensor bad or something that's giving you a false hot signal. Does the vehicle seem like it's hot when that light comes on?
I haven't gone out with her. She always pulls into my driveway and the light came on. But I know it, as you've been talking about air conditioning, she runs the air conditioning constantly. And I know they spend too much time sitting in the parking lot or stuff, friends, not going anyplace.
They will overheat. If you're sitting in a parking lot and it's a warm day, like it's been in most of the country where it's around 90, they're not meant to be sitting and idling. Cars that are brand new and still very efficient, they've got a very clean block inside, a brand new radiator that's very clean. Everything's at 100% on a warm day, can usually work much better and much longer through idle periods than ones that are old. Once a vehicle is 3 or 4 years old, it loses 10 to 30% of its cooling efficiency because the radiator is starting to get scale built up in it, just a very small amount. The iron in the block, the aluminum in the block, that's starting to get some scale in it. The coolant's getting older. It's picking up metals as it travels through the system, and it's losing efficiency. It's going to run hotter. You're getting bugs that are jammed in the grill and stuff, in the fins. They're bent over. Yeah, you can ruin an engine if you let it sit and idle. You shouldn't be idling more than just your stop signs. If you pull in and you're waiting in school to pick up the kids, sitting there for a half hour could overheat a vehicle very easily.
Be very aware on those vans. We sell a lot of fans for the vans on those caravans, but not only electrically we see some problems, but the hub center wears out of them and the blade comes apart and you won't get the fan action because it can't turn the fan. And so you definitely got to get that checked out. If that heat light's coming on, you can't ignore it with the temperature driving. You're going to kill the air conditioner. It's very expensive repair, even though the vehicle's not very expensive, and you're going to kill the engine. And so if it's truly getting hot, this is an immediate problem that needs to be fixed. That's why it's a red light.
Steve, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Tim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Tim, what can we do for you?
Yeah, see, last week about a 2018 Dodge Ram Bighorn half-ton. And the deal is the front grille, the Ram part, when you turn on the park lights, it actually lights up red.
Fun.
And I go to shut, turn it to off, and they go on. Then when I turn my light switch back to like manual lights at the auto, it stays lit. I can't get that to go off.
You don't like it?
Well, I like it, but I think it's still illegal to drive around, with that on the state highways and stuff.
Yeah, the red ones, the manufacturers, there's a couple of them I've seen that they put them on like factory, but they were white on the front. They weren't red. If you've got a red one up there, it's not a factory one. It's an aftermarket one. I don't know I would have no idea how they wired that thing. You're just going to have to find out how it's wired and put a switch on it.
How many miles are on the truck?
25,000.
And I'm guessing it's a beautiful truck if somebody's put those extra accents on it and stuff.
I'm not sure if it's factory, and I've looked in the owner's manual and don't say nothing about that lighting up or anything, so I have no idea. I'm thinking it's factory.
I don't think it is
not
either.
Not if it's red. It's not if it's red, it shouldn't be. Because
Is the truck got any sort of special package on it? I mean, is it a Rebel, or is there anything special about the truck,
No.
or is it like an SLT Laramie or that sort of a thing?
No,
Yeah.
it's a Bighorn.
Bighorn,
It's,
okay.
it's pretty loaded. And I didn't come with the bill sheet, and I kind of looked up the VIN number, and it says it's got 2 packages, and I didn't look up the 2 packages it's got, though.
Our best guess is that is not factory.
No, red lights on the front of a motor vehicle in the United States are against federal motor vehicle law, and none of the manufacturers would break that. They would be in violation. They'd be in trouble. So
It's not unusual for people to add LED accent lights to
On a
their
brand new
vehicles.
truck.
It's not unusual at all. We see people doing it all the time to the underglow on the sides, wheel wells, behind the wheels. We had a group that we worked with that gave Russ some lights that are in the wheels on the under the hood showed Camaro, some accent lighting.
Oracle Lighting sells all those.
I couldn't think of their name. That's why I was pointing at you.
I was
Tron had a lot of lights on.
I was watching your car one time, and I thought, how do they make the lights that turn with the wheel without getting tangled up? And then it took me about a month to go, oh, the lights don't turn. They just light up and the wheels turn, and it looks,
You've got to make sure that when you're putting accent lights on like that there's a lot of city ordinances on them. We used to do them all the time back at the stereo shop. We'd put undercar lights on, and they were fine when we were putting them on for about 3 years. We had no problems. But then people started putting their own on, and they had a law that said you could not see the bulbs from the side of the vehicle.
Okay.
You could only see the glow. Indirect lighting, they called it. So you could have green, you could have purple, blue, as long as they didn't flash and as long as they were indirect, so you could just see the glow under the car like you do in some of the movies, they were fine. But then people started hanging their own lights. You could see the tubes. They were putting blue and red, and they would start flashing with the music. And what do you see? If you see a car with blue neon lights blinking to the music underneath down the road, you think it's a police car.
Mm-hmm.
So they immediately threw out an ordinance and said no lights. Well, they couldn't ban all of them, but they did follow the rules strictly for the federal laws. Amber on the sides, rear of the rear axle, red or amber, front of the front axle, amber or white, things like that.
So in Tim's case, what's the fix here?
You got to find the wire, cut it, put a switch in it to turn it on and off when you want to turn it on and off. So when you're in a parking lot, you can have it on.
Is there a chance that if it's integrated that it's programmable? But if it's staying on, it's probably not in the program of the vehicle, right?
Right. And if it's aftermarket, it might be one that has a wireless Bluetooth control. If you get on Google, you Google that illuminated Ram grill emblem, you're going to find it. And a lot of them do have a little Bluetooth remote control.
Interesting.
You can turn them on just like we do with the LEDs in the studio. You turn them on and you can select the color and all that stuff. I'm guessing it's probably got one of those, and that's why it's staying on.
Tim, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. I thought of this last week when we talked about something. Did cars ever have like nav lights, like boats, green on one side, red on the other?
I
was actually thinking about your truck, wondering if
the Amphicar.
Yeah, I suppose.
If it's got a boat, and then it has to have a boat license and a car license on that. I've known a couple people that have had those over the years. They've gotten tickets from like the game fishing park because they drove them into the lake.
They're pretty noticeable too. I bet if you drive one into a lake, everybody around comes and looks at it, including the DNR guy.
You think the last thing would be, where's your lights? I mean, come on.
No.
I'm sitting there watching this
License
car.
tags.
Yeah.
I know.
They're not worried about the lights.
I'm
as
watching
much.
this thing drive out there. That is so cool. Can we just watch this? Do we have to give him a ticket? Right? I mean, come on.
No, it's the registrations that they that
Yeah,
they
whatever. Just there's a car in
It's
the
an
water. Let
Amphicar.
him drive it. Give me a ride.
Let's talk to Mike. Mike, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. What I have a friend who has a 2017 Hyundai Tucson. It's got 80,000 miles on it. She's the second owner, and she changes the oil between 3,000 and 4,000 miles, 5W30 like a synthetic, and she does a lot of road miles. Anyway, I noticed the other day when I was talking to her that her car, the oil doesn't seem to stay up there at good levels. And what I mean by that, when I checked the oil, it was down like 1.5 quarts or so. And the question I pose to you is, you don't have any problems with it. It's a little 4-cylinder, great vehicle, runs out good, doesn't have any knocks or anything like that. But is there any concerns there? I mean, if you don't have oil, granted, you're going to have a problem. But is there anything out there that you guys know of that would help mitigate this? Or are we looking at maybe a new motor, a new engine, rebuild questions, something like that?
Just a quick follow-up on your description of the vehicle. Turbocharged vehicle? Because they made some turbos in those.
No.
But just a standard, normally aspirated.
Just a standard, yeah, nothing fancy in that respect. But it runs out great.
All right, and we're changing oil at 3,000 miles about, and we're
3 to 4,000. Yeah, 3,000 to 4,000 miles, and she does a lot of road miles. So I mean, you're not talking in-town driving. We're talking primarily out on the road, and she does drive it. I mean, so she'll do 70, 80 miles an hour. So
I don't know what the manufacturer would tell you, but I would say that's not normal. So
I would agree.
To have a little bit gone, a eighth of a quart gone or something, but these new vehicles should not burn oil. I say new. You said it's quite low mileage, correct?
Yeah, it's got 80,000 on it, and I checked underneath the car. It doesn't seem to have anything there. The head and stuff. Of course, I'm not a mechanic either, but I checked around to see if there's any leaks around the head and stuff like that. Everything seems to be tight, so I'm going to make a speculation that it's internal.
Yeah, it could be something with the ventilation system for the crankcase. They've had some issues on a few cars with those.
You need to inspect that first.
Yeah, make sure that's working like it's properly. But if it is, I'd like to know too, did it do this since the car was brand new? Because some of these, they had a requirement. They said, and a lot of people don't really go into detail unless the dealership tells you when you buy the car. But if you buy a brand new car, we've had some customers take them. They get 500 miles on them and they think, I better change the oil because there's 500 miles. And they switch to a fully synthetic so they can get started right away with a fully synthetic 100% oil in there. And the engine never breaks in. It's meant to go, 7 to 10,000 miles on the oil. They put in it right away. That's why they tell you the first oil change on a lot of those at 10,000. People don't understand why it's so long. And then after that, it goes lower. Well, that's to break it in. So that can be an issue where the rings just never seated in the engine, so it never worked. It could have had an issue since it was new. We've had a few of those engines that had oil burning problems, and they had to be replaced. If you're burning through a half a quart or a quart, let's say a quart every 3,000 miles, you're going to contaminate the catalytic converter eventually. It's going to give you a check engine light for the non-efficiency of it, and then it's going to start restricting the exhaust, and that'll have to be replaced with the engine. But right now, before I go too far, I would probably be looking at the emission system on that, make sure that the ventilation system is working properly.
Does that help you out there, Mike?
Okay.
Check the PCV system.
Yeah, I'm still there.
Yeah, check the PCV system, and if you find that to be in good shape, then don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call your Hyundai dealer and just ask them, here's my VIN number. Might I happen to be part of any sort of a campaign? Because there are, Hyundais and Kias have gotten so much better over the years. We've talked about this a lot, but there are still some engine issues across certain lines of their product line. We've seen some engine issues. So you might want to check. Just don't ignore it.
If you bought a new car and you changed the oil too soon to go with the good oil to make your car last and you wrecked it, that has to be a kind of disappointment and anger I wouldn't want to feel.
We've had people that in the last 6 months, we've had at least 3 customers come to us because they bought an engine. It's been in there 9 months to a year, and their engine blew up. And we look and we found anywhere from 10,000 miles to 17,000 miles on the oil change. They never changed the oil since they put it in.
That's different than doing it too soon.
But how would you feel? It's like I just spent this money to get something
Apparently
fixed.
They just want to be blaming somebody because they should have felt to change their oil.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. This is the Under the Hood Show.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. If you subscribe to our YouTube channel and you like us on Facebook and you join the Hoodie Fan Club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Mary Setch, who listens to us on KMAS in Shelton, Washington. Congratulations from all of us under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. They're going to get you trained to be the best technician you can be, whether that's a collision repair technician, an automotive technician, a welder, welding technician, motorcycle technician, personal watercraft technician. There's jobs available right now, and you should be properly trained so you can get the best pay available right now. UTI.edu.
It seems like being a watercraft technician would be a good gig because they always need something.
They do, but I don't know what they get paid.
Yeah.
But usually watercraft guys, like in our area, they're watercraft guys and they're snowmobile guys and they're motorcycle guys.
Okay.
And the pay for the motorcycle guys is not bad. Well, I guess if I'm looking at it, I don't know what the exact number is, but if I'm looking at it and I see that their labor rate is $165 an hour, and automotive rate in the same area is $145 an hour, that technician better be getting paid at least the same as the automotive guy, because if they're not, there's some other places in the area that do, let's just say, service work, and their technicians, they're charging $165 an hour, but their technicians are making like half of what our techs would. Something's
you still have to put the engine in the barrel in your garage to run it, and that's what my neighbor used to do.
You got to
every
have
year.
some water muffs.
I have not put an engine in a barrel in a very long time like that. I've got water connections for stuff, but
those engines are getting way better too. It's that one hasn't stayed the same either. That's advanced quite a bit.
Right now, though, I'm sorry, Russ. I talked the just down at the river recently, and boy, the people waiting like every other thing for marine engines right now is just like, just name it, something you're waiting for. They're waiting for them.
Yesterday, a couple of the industries, one was bicycles, and the other one was in appliances. Because I've been waiting forever for an appliance. I think you're
gonna have to throw that cheese away. I don't think it's gonna last.
They both said that they had updates from their manufacturers saying that if something doesn't make it worse, they're anticipating the catch-up date, the end of 2018, to be caught up with all the back orders.
They're going
2028.
There we go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're going back in time. Yeah, 2028 is the estimated catch-up day to be caught up with all the products they need to get shipped out and the new stuff. Problem is, like right now, I'm thinking I'm going to go get a refund for one I've been waiting on for so long, because I'm going to get the last year's model, which I bought as a new model. When I get it, I waited for a dishwasher almost a year, and when I got it, it was the previous year's model. So then what do? It's a kind of a tricky situation. Car parts, we're running into a lot of stuff where it's
first world problems.
We ordered a camshaft. We talk about the Dodge Caravans and and the Promasters with that 3.6 engine and how many camshaft issues there are. Well, guess what? We go to order a camshaft and they say, oh yeah, we've got like 43 on order of each side, intake and exhaust. We're like, whew.
Was that the 2.4 you're talking about?
No, the 6-cylinder.
Okay.
Like, so you're having issues with these? Oh yeah. It's like, well, when can we get one? Oh, it could be a couple months. All right, we order it. First one comes in wrong. Well, you got to wait again. Next one came in. We opened the box. Somebody had dropped the box. It was damaged. Well, okay, it's damaged. When do we get another one? Oh, you're not special.
You're back at
the beginning of the list.
Yeah.
So you wait, and the poor customer has to wait as well. And other things we've ordered, simple stuff. You go to order brakes for a car or struts, and they're like, we can't get those. But usually with struts, they're in bad shape. You can get by a little bit and wait. But it surprises me how many people, they've just rolled over and taken whatever they're given, and they just say, oh, I've got to wait 6 months for that part. Okay. It's just horrible.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Wyoming and talk to John. You're on the Under the Hood Show. John, what can we do for you?
I was calling about the oil filters on, mine's a 2020 Toyota Sienna. and the oil filter has a canister with a drain plug in it, and it's just like they stepped back 50 years to put this in. I had a 2012 Tacoma, and it had a nice can of spin-on oil filter right up under the hood. Real easy to get to, real easy to change. And then this new Sienna is like my 1960 348 Chevy engine filter, only worse. Anyway, is there an adapter? They used to make an adapter for those Chevys to convert those filters over to a spin-on.
There is not on that, and you're going to see probably nearly every engine manufactured as you go into the future from then on going to a spin-on or a cartridge filter instead of a spin-on with just a cap until they become all electric someday. So, I mean, it might be 20, 30 years, who knows, but you're going to see that. And the reason for it is well, twofold. One, it prevents leaks. You can't double gasket it and have a leak. And two, recycling. It is extremely hard to recycle a steel can full of cardboard and dirty oil. It's very easy to recycle a piece of biodegradable cardboard covered in oil. That's why they're going to this. And that also lends me on to the next subject of the same thing. You know, if you have one of these vehicles and you've got any oil filter, any car or truck that takes an oil filter, the oil filters are only designed to last so long because they are made out of a biodegradable, basically, cardboard to break down in the environment. It may take a while, but a lot of people are driving less miles right now. COVID, they stayed at home and didn't drive. So they say, well, I only put 300 miles on my car last year, so I didn't change the car in the whole year. I've had a couple cars come in that the oil filters fell apart and started clogging things. So you've got to replace the oil filters more often. But yeah, that's what's going on.
Time element is important.
Yes, for sure.
How do you recycle one of these elements, I guess?
You take it to where if you're changing your oil, you can bring those oil filters in, like where we're at. You can bring it to us if you're changing your oil. If you're at changing it in South Carolina or Florida or Texas, you bring it in wherever they take recycled oil. They typically will take old oil filters as well to be crushed and recycled.
I find that if I just ask Shannon at the right time, you'll just take it. Well, sometimes if I don't time it right, but most of the time you'll just go, oh no, I can take that. I'll just put it right here.
Yeah, we have a machine that where those oil filters get squashed here at Nordstrom's Auto Recycling, and then they get put in the recycle. I mean, that's what they do. Some states require. I want to say I'm positive Colorado and Michigan are both two of them, in New York and New Jersey, but I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure they require that you have Snap-on bought Safety Clean. Is that right? I think they're the same.
I'm not going to say that for sure.
Anyway, Safety Clean is a company that goes around and picks up
environmental waste.
Yes. Well, they're doing oil filters too.
Okay.
They'll pick up old oil filters. They do shop rags in some states. They do chemicals like parts washers and brake cleaners and stuff. It all has to be reclaimed. You can't throw oil filters in the garbage. Pretty much any state has got some kind of law against it, but there's a lot of people that still at home, they just take them off and they throw them in the garbage. But there's a lot of oil.
It's quite amazing. We've got an Oberg oil crusher, and we can put 4, 6, 8 filters in there at once, depending on what size they are. And you put it in, close the door, and we've got a bung right on the bottom of it that drains right into one of our oil antifreeze separator receptacles. And when you squish that baby down, we should put a video of that on our...
I was just going to say, let's get a video of that after the show.
For the YouTube. We'll down there and we'll squish a bunch of them. But you get a lot of oil out.
I bet, yeah.
We send them all up over here from our shop up in town to be done because our machine, we still have it, but it's an old green machine and the front's open. You put a filter in it, and when you squish it, well, sometimes it's like trying to squash a tomato on your counter. You never know where it's going, or the ketchup packet. It sometimes would just come right out the front and all over you.
Called the Gallagher machine.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Just one of those things on the wall like the recycling where you pull it down.
Yeah.
The hammer.
Yeah.
Gallagher. I haven't seen a Gallagher show in a long time.
John, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Arizona and talk to Chris. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Chris, what can we do for you?
Well, I've got a 2016 Ford F-150 with the 3.5 EcoBoost in it, and done some wood stuff to it. I pulled a 30-foot fifth wheel with it, an ultralight, and it would get warm on hills, especially if I was pushing it hard, because when Jim Bob comes up in his Dodge, I've got to show him that the 3.5 V6 will eat that 5.7 for lunch. And anyways, I kept getting an overheating problem, but since the time I listened to your show and today, I think I figured out the problem, but it's kind of I had to go to some plumbing parts to make it work.
Keep talking, because you've got us scared.
And interested.
Okay, well, it's interesting. But anyways, I ordered a Mitsumoto aluminum radiator for it. Of course, quite a bit bigger than the factory radiator. And of course, the radiator hoses and stuff that come factory, it has that plastic end on it that you just snap onto the radiator nipple, and then you push the little wire down and it holds the hose on. Not like the old style that you and I grew up with a hose clamp and, the for sure way. Anyways, I didn't know why it was overheating, and I pulled into my driveway the other day, and I see radiator fluid underneath. It's like, holy cow, all this is new. Now, I've got 138,000 miles on it. Never been in the shop, other than I service the tranny, I service the oil regularly. I believe in it. But anyways, I could not see where it was leaking. And for the heck of it, I just grabbed the radiator hose and kind of wiggled it. And that housing, that plastic housing that snaps onto the radiator nipple, that's what, an inch and a half or so, inch and a quarter, it sprayed fluid out because it was still a little warm. And I think that was the problem, but what I did, as a matter of fact, I know that was the problem, but I couldn't trust just going and getting a PVC 90 and putting some thread-in nipples on it and do that, because of course, this will run 210, 220. I don't think PVC will hold that kind of pressure. So what I did is I bought a radiator hose, and I went and got a galvanized 90 with two nipples and created that as my 90, and used hose clamps with a little piece of radiator hose now that clamps over the new Mitsumoto nipple off the radiator. And I just to test it out, I hooked the fifth wheel up and took it up one of our hills up here. And it's a long stretch. I don't know if you guys know what Salt River Canyon is, but it's coming up quite a grade. And never got into even the middle. It stayed right where it was.
All right, we're going to try not to jump on you with both feet here, but
Wait, let's, before we go there, how many miles are on the truck?
138,000, he said, I think.
138?
138,000.
And you've had it since it was new?
Had it brand new.
And you've been pulling with it like that the whole time?
No. I didn't put that Mitsumoto radiator in it until the last time we did a big trip up to Montana, the Dakotas, Rushmore, and stuff like that. And every time I'd get on a hill, matter of fact, it'd get so warm, it'd put me into a limp mode and then reduce my speed.
But what Russ was asking is, though, had you pulled with the truck since it was new?
Oh, yeah.
That's quite amazing.
And it hasn't exploded. I am kind of shocked and amazed all at the same time, because we see tons and tons and tons of these things come in, and when they're subject to that much pulling, where they're usually blowing up without showing that kind of signs of overheating. But if you got it so hot that it's going into limp mode and it still survived, well, that's awesome.
I do want to back up just a little bit here. This camper you said was 30 foot? How much does it weigh?
30 foot. It's dry weight is about 8,900, and of course once we get our gear in it, I'm retired, but we travel every summer. My wife's still teaching, but loaded I'm about 10,000. But this one I ordered with the HO35. So it's not the 395 horses. They did to it, by the time I'm done, I'm about 500 horse.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
Tow package too?
Yeah, what's the tow package in it? What is this? What's your
tow package? 12,200 towing capacity.
So you've got the 410 gears in it.
Yes, I do.
There
Yes,
you
I
go.
do.
That's something right there. I'm glad you called because that.
I wish everyone could see your guys' body language.
Well, here's
when
the thing. So far, everyone that's called us and said my EcoBoost blew up and I'm on my second or third or fourth engine, and everybody that's coming to our shop that's had one blown up has not had the towing package. And we said, look, you can't look at the ad on TV where it says it'll do over 11,000 pounds with your 355 geared truck that's made to tow 8,000 pounds. Because Shannon and I right off thought, oh boy, he's got a 30-foot trailer. How is he not blown that thing up? So the tow package is a huge.
But he's right on the limit of that towing.
Probably pretty close. So as long as he keeps it cool and he's got the right gears in it,
because what we run into isn't so much engine temperature issues. Is the you start building up that kind of heat in the turbos, and the back heat that gets into the cylinders and then eventually into the block is really hard on them.
And lugging it.
But you sound like you're on top of this thing and you're watching it. But boy, if you've gotten hot enough to get into limp mode, I'm concerned. I wouldn't do what you're doing, but you're doing good.
I like that it starts to get hot when he tries to prove it to other people that
I
it
know.
can do. That's
and he's got.
I'm
the trucks,
with you on that one.
And he's got
Chris.
trucks that he's trying to compete with that are going by with what's their towing capacity.
When the trucks pass me, I don't try to prove anything because I can't. I just slow down and they go, I wonder how fast that truck goes.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. The Autotempest.com has been getting a workout at my house. Every time
Mine too.
Somebody says something about a car, you jump on, and only to see like how much they're going for versus how much they used to go for.
I bet I talk to people at least twice a day, my customers coming in, because they're calling me, they're asking me how much is I don't want to put an engine in it. It can't be. No, go to autotempest.com. Look, they're putting it on there like, well, I don't know. I'm sure they're cheaper. No, look, I'm telling you, all the cars are on one search. So you can just find everything in one place and it shows you. And they're like, I can't believe my car is worth that much. It's like a 98 Buick LeSabre. There's no way it's crazy.
I read an article recently and I wanted to remember the numbers so much. They listed the top 10 highest changes in resale value and the ones that had changed the least. But even the ones like the bottom 10 models, and what they did was it was extensive. They did all of the sales in 2019 or the month of 2019 that they were comparing it to 2020 or in 2021. And it was, as you can imagine, crazily higher. The average price of used cars had jumped.
Well, the lowest one was probably 10 to 15%, and the highest ones were probably 60%, right?
Yes, the lowest was about 7%, and the highest was about one of them was I thought 43%.
Yeah, there's been some amazing things.
There's still some,
and there's one. Yours was on the list as one of the highest
the trucks?
changes. No, the Camaro.
Oh
in
yeah,
the change.
Camaro's up, and even my truck. I've been seeing trucks like mine that are in good shape like mine selling for $20,000, which just blows me away. But really, where are you going to get a Ford Order 1-ton 4-wheel drive dually? It's crazy money. But there are some though when they come up. Toyota Avalon, the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised. There's people are like, nope, I don't want to buy it. It's like, but I've got a car and you don't have one, and this one's pretty decent. Nope, not interested. And they're selling. They've only gone up like 15%, which is weird. And when other ones are just crazy money, like the Honda Accord. Looked up, was it 2001 Honda Accord, and it was like way up.
I think it was. Was it in Road and Track? Anyway, I was gonna try and I was gonna write myself a note, and then I thought, well, I won't forget. I'll just, it's Thursday.
You don't forget. Chris doesn't forget.
This will be easy. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Craig. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Craig, what can we do for you?
Hi guys. I just heard Russ mention a '98 Buick LeSabre on the radio, and that's what I've got a question about. My wife took it out. Thinking it was Tuesday. Went uptown, and it started fine, ran great. On the way home, it started to derate like a diesel would. No throttle response. She made it home, but an hour later she went to try to start it, and it was just dead.
Did it turn over?
Starter would engage.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all. You could hear the starter hit the flywheel, but it would just kill it, just like that.
Oh,
everything went dark.
I wonder if the intake manifold started leaking antifreeze and it got back into the cylinder and hydrolocked the engine.
It was misfiring, and then it...
Yes. Pull the spark plugs out. Well, that doesn't. It sounds easier. You can get the front ones pretty easy. Pull out a few spark plugs and then just bump the starter carefully, and be careful. Throw a rag over it or something because you could shoot out antifreeze. See if your antifreeze is low. What would you do first, Russ?
Yeah, if you're hitting the key and it just goes tunk and nothing, I'm probably going to pull all 6 spark plugs out. They're not too hard. You can get them all out in a half hour or so, but pull them all out and then crank it over. Don't have anybody standing in front of it because it might shoot water out, but you're fine inside the car. Just crank it. If it spins over and then you go up front, and you go, oh, look, there's antifreeze on the ground. That's what's happened.
I'm going to go back to what I said. Lay a rag or something over it. Otherwise, it's going to shoot all over your ceiling of your garage door. But then what you need to do is replace the intake manifold. And
unless there's damage.
Yeah. It should be okay, though. This has happened before. If she shut it off and it bled down inside the engine, if we're correct, this is a strong hunch, you should be fine, but you've got to replace the intake manifold.
Craig, thanks very much for the call. That'll do it for another hour of the Under the Hood Show. You can find us online at underthehoodshow.com. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivants.